mentally review your timetable, see where you are, and decide what is stopping you from progressing in a particular subject, or overall, or for NATA, or for 12th boards, or for both, or for something else. Your confidence levels, your commitment levels, your distraction levels, your environment, your being organized or disorganized. Maybe your desk is messy. Maybe you feel that you have not done your basics well, and hence something is, you can't proceed.
Time management, I would say the tentative dates of HSC board exam have been released, like they're around 20th February. So, I mean, I don't know where to start studying, or should I study the current chapters, or should I start and revise the old ones? Like, how should I give priority to the chapters and study all over? Like, except PCM, there are subjects like English and geography also. So,
Okay. Right. So I showed you a graph, or there is a graph in the class, which I actually just reiterated on Sunday. I will just draw that graph for you, and then I'll paste it up here. Okay. So that you'll be able to. How many of you remember that graph from Sunday's class? I specifically mentioned something. Okay. So let me just create that graph for you. Yes, thanks, Kiara and Soumya. Yeah, I've posted the graph on the group. So notice that your recall will start dwindling down. Yeah, within 1 hour. In fact, within 10 minutes. And that's the timeline is below 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, and then 20 years. Yeah. So as your recall is going down, you have to warp the graph at those points, right? So that your recall remains at a constant high. So revision times should be after 10 minutes, then 1 hour, then 1 day, then 1 week, then 1 month, then 1 year, and after that 20 years, right? By that I mean, after 1 year, if you revise the material after 1 year of your original learning, you will retain it for 20 years. So the next revision would be only after 20 years needed. In between, it is not needed, right? And after that, it is for the rest of your life. You'll remember, right? And that is how the ancient people used to remember things, by way of oral tradition, meaning purely through the mantras, constantly reciting, constantly. They used to simply remember. At that time, script did not exist, or forms of writing did not exist. So purely by Guru Shishya Parampara, they used to recite the shloks. Okay, this is how this happens, this is how that happens, etc., etc., etc. And they used to remember it, right? And they did not have to give any exam, because life itself is the exam, right? So you remember it, and such that, and you space the repetitions out to this extent so that it's optimal. And after that, you remember for the rest of your life. And whenever it's required, since you remember throughout forever, it simply pops in exactly the time you need it. Many times with us, what happens is that, in fact, exam ke time, your memory deserts you, right? So if you repeat something at these intervals, if you repeat it even more, then it is wasted. As in, you are repeating it unnecessarily, because utna to yaad reh hi gaya hai. So why would you keep on doing it again and again? Instead, you would rather do some new material, right? But if you do not do at these intervals, then you have done yourself a disservice even while you are studying, right? Because all that time, energy, effort you had put in while studying, you are not addressing it, and hence the recall is going down and down and down. So all that time was wasted. It would have been okay even if you did not study, because now the recall is 20% only. So it did not make sense if you did not warp the graph. Each time the line is gravitating towards the horizontal, you are pulling it up, pulling it up, pulling it up, pulling it up, so that the recall remains high. Got that? In fact, the recall increases after 10 minutes. That's something which is hard to believe, but so be it. It's all research findings, right? So warp the graph constantly. See, you don't have to keep on studying ABCD, because you have done it so many times that now you are reading sentences and paragraphs and stories and entire lessons, and you can still make sense of it because nothing has gone down, right? But the collective knowledge of whatever, like for example, why do you remember definitions? Because you have to, right? You have repeated it so many times that the definition in physics has to come exactly verbatim. You can't create your version of a definition, right? A body in its state of rest or of uniform motion continues to be in its state of rest or uniform motion unless and until acted upon by an external unbalanced force. ये जैसा है वैसा ही है. You can't make your story out of it, because essence तो है ना, तो ऐसा नहीं, right? The definitions, so that's where physics comes in like very, very sharp, because it is what it is. You can't do either and other, right? History, humanities, you can write in your own words. Here you have to write in the words that scientists all over the world have agreed upon. That's it. There is no mandwali nahi hai, right? Give or take nahi hai, right? So G is equal to F is equal to G times M1 M2 by R square is, so you can't write R cube just because you don't like 2 and you like 3 better, right? And so realize that this, you need to get into the exactness of things. When you are on a site or when you are designing a product, the measurements are absolute. You can't have thoda idhar udhar chal jayega. 19-20 का फर्क तो पड़ता है ना, नहीं पड़ता है, नहीं पड़ना चाहिए. I will not tolerate it. So you should not tolerate yourself from writing anything less than the perfect answer, right? It has to be like, you should have that pride, or even you may even say an ego, right? That I have to get this right. So I will not leave it until I have it correct. And don't expect, the point is, you expect yourself to be right the first time you read. That's like creating Mona Lisa the first time you paint, which means you are not, you do dislike consistency, but realize that all knowledge is not independent of actions. So you have to, while you are learning, you are creating new neural pathways, synapses, right? So the synapses take a while. If you actually zoom into your brain, then there is a flow of river like this, right? ऐसे 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 जा रहा है, 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 ऐसे 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 जा रहा है. Now it is not connecting with this. It needs to connect with this synapse, right? The axons and dendrons are moving here and there. Idhar se ja raha hai, pulses, electricity is moving. And only when this connects, the specific synapses happen and you remember, or you get an idea, or etc. Right? So this connection needs to happen. And once it has happened, if you do not, because now it's a new connection, new neural pathway, right? Earlier the circuits were flowing this way, and now there is a new neural pathway established, right? So now this pathway needs to be reinforced. Abhi ye itna kam hai. This much is, this is only this much. Now this can snap anytime if you don't revise. So likewise, वो धीरे 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 revise करते 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 करते, it needs to become a firm handshake, right? Grip for total recall. So basically what you are doing is you are simply training your neural pathways, बस और कुछ नहीं है. मतलब all that मुझे याद नहीं रह रहा है, तो कंटाला आया, तो प्रोक्रेस्टिनेशन किया, तो हाई रे मरारे किया, तो आई एम नॉट गुड इनफ, सी ऑल दीज अदर फर्स्ट रैंकर्स आर गिफ्टेड, एंड मैं तो गई गुजरी, मैं तो गया गुजरा, आई कांट डू इवन दिस मच, and they are already able to do so much, wish I was born with a better brain, etc, 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 all that. Instead, focus all that time, energy, effort in simply revising, and once more until you get it. And if you have not gotten it, that's not it, again and again and again, right? So the question can never be that, oh, I am not able to do this. It's only until you get it, you need to continuously do this, right? And that's where the repeatedness, how many times should you repeat, that kicks in, that these are the optimal times, so that the graph is growing. So it's very researched finding, right? So once you start tapping on these timelines, that is when you are able to establish the optimal neural pathways, and that is called learning, right? So there is a real brain chemistry that is undergoing change. Realize that. So instead of saying that I am not able to remember this, realize that it is basically you are guiding the neural pathways to form, which means you need to have patience and understand that it's only a brain thing. It's not you thing. It's not I am not good enough, I can't do this. Because whenever you give yourself negative suggestions, and these are negative suggestions, whenever you think anything negative, not okay, hi re marare, life sucks, I'm not good enough, etc, 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 what you are doing is you are creating those neural pathways, new neural pathways. So now they become hardened. I'm not good enough, I'm this not okay, physics is difficult, why this, hi re marare, etc, etc. So now those neural pathways are getting stronger, and the required neural pathways of F is equal to ma, etc, etc, or the balancing of equations, or the atomic number of sulfur, etc, those neural pathways are not getting a chance to get formulated, or balancing of equations, etc, because you are indulged in this, you are giving more energy to this pathway, which is not productive. For the brain, it does not distinguish between this pathway or that pathway. Whatever you will give energy to, that will flourish. If you are giving energy, negative energy to some thought, which means you are entertaining that thought, then that will get reinforced. Bas. So whether you think you can or you think you cannot, either ways you are right. So might as well do something to become more productive, right? टाइम तो उतना ही जाने वाला है, क्रिबिंग में भी उतना ही टाइम जाने वाला है, चिंता में भी उतना ही टाइम जाने वाला है, डिफीटिस्ट थॉट्स में भी उतना ही टाइम जाने वाला है. Instead, utilize all that time in doing something constructive, right? So it is simply that. So which means you have to constantly realign. So what happens is that you expect yourself and you are comparing your other people. ये देख, वो फर्स्ट रैंकर है ना, उसको तो यार एक बार पढ़ेगा ना तो सब कुछ याद रह जाता है. How lucky. For me, it takes at least 3 or 4 or 5 times repetition. So good, your timetable is clear, that you have to repeat it 3 or 4 times or 5 times, whatever it takes, until you get it right. तो वो जो बोर्डम आता है because you are not getting it right, not yet, still अभी तक नहीं, अरे अब तक नहीं हुआ, अरे अब तक नहीं हुआ. So that defeatist thought, so that is purely to do with expectations. You wanted result X, but you are getting result Y, right? So you define it as I'm not successful, I'm not good enough, etc. So you simply have to do it until you get it right. Bas ho gaya. That is what an Olympic champion does. A Michael Phelps keeps on swimming just to shave off microseconds. Imagine that. Right? This lap, 50 meters lap, kitne time mein hua? Okay. 9 minutes, 31 seconds and further maybe 0.8. तो अभी उसको 0.7 कैसे करे, उसको 0.6 कैसे करे, 0.5 करे, कैसे करे? माइक्रो सेकंड्स दे आर शेविंग. मतलब ग्रेट डिलाइट इन दैट. बाकी है तो वही स्विमिंग, ऐसा 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 क्या है, बिग डील, राइट? द सेम थिंग ओवर एंड ओवर एंड ओवर एंड ओवर एंड ओवर एंड ओवर एंड ओवर, years together, days together, continuously. 4:30 बजे उठो, एक्सरसाइज करो, वार्म अप हो जाओ, मारो कूदी स्विमिंग पूल में. सेम रूटीन. हाउ बोरिंग. Just realize that. But same thing done again and again and again, and you are constantly noticing exactly कहाँ क्या stroke हो रहा है, कैसे हो रहा है, how are you feeling, what is the streamlined body motion in the water, and what is your intake in terms of food, and how long did you exercise, and how are you feeling, and what is your mental conditioning, and now that entity is swimming, and with the technique and with the tracking constantly. Oh, this much. Abhi itna time laga. Now let me shave out that microsecond. One more microsecond. Okay. After 1 week, I could shave off 2 microseconds. Now further, further, further. So that after 4 years, the same Michael Phelps, when he stands there and he does that and he breaks that his own previous record. Now there is adulation. Now there is the gold medal. Now there is a national anthem, etc., etc., etc. Like, wow, how great. Right? So this doing it again and again, that stickiness, consistent action. Thoughts nahi, not only thoughts. Thoughts is not equal to action. Thoughts is only thoughts. Knowledge and action are same. Knowledge is equal to action. Matlab, if you have knowledge and don't take action, which means to write it, to recite it, to revise it, then that knowledge will fade away. And if you just take actions without knowledge, then you are just not really doing what needs to be done. So knowledge is equal to actions, actions is equal to knowledge, right? Which means there is a complete body learning. It's not that your brain only is learning. That brain ka effect is happening on the 60 trillion cells. Hello. Which means your entire body is learning. Sometimes do you realize that while we are all visual learners, that's why we love art and drawing, etc., and model making and things. So while you are studying, if you are visualizing, oh, idhar se kuch aaya, and you did this action, oh, this and that happens, and idhar se ye aa raha hai, wo aa raha hai. Now when you start recalling, oh, I had done this, and then I had done this, oh, I recall this. Right? So do it with actions. Like imagine the test tubes in a chemistry lab, all that, oh, this is this solution, and then you are moving it this way, and वो pipette में भरा, जो भी इधर से ये लिया, ये किया, वो किया उधर, oh, the solution is changing this color, and it is showing up as whatever, the blue solution is showing up as CuSO4, okay, copper sulfate, etc., etc. Right? So and visualize the dilution, visualize the concentration, whatever it is, and see that 4 molecules of oxygen are joining, etc., etc. So all those things you need to visualize, and it's delightful to visualize, right? So it's never a boring moment. So you have to create new ways of looking at things. Just as you make drawings in various ways, likewise, you are feeling enthusiastic about without bothering about what that subject matter is. And that's where you will never feel that. Have you wondered ever a first ranker complaining about any particular subject? Physics is difficult, maths is difficult, this is difficult, that is difficult. For him, it does not matter. It's purely learning. The subject does not matter, right? Because this is to be done. That's it. He is very neutral, very democratic, right? About all subjects. This requires my attention, and I need to do this, and I will do it. And that's why such a scorer always scores like 95, etc. in all subjects. उसको कुछ पड़ी ही नहीं है. Now, Hindi is not my favorite, or French is not my favorite, or physics is not my favorite, or maths or geography, etc. For such a person, there is no favoritism. This is to be done. So that's the commitment. So he's not addressing his thoughts, moods, feelings, emotions, but his commitment. That's it. Right? Sahi? Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So managing time is nothing but managing your emotions. There is no such thing as time management. Time is equal to mind. Your mind is the time. Time is flowing the same for everyone else. Aju baju mein dekho. Right? If you compare everyone's clocks over here, the clock is ticking at the same rate. Right? So there's nothing out there. The way it's occurring here, that's it. That is the only game. So you are not managing time, but within the existing time over which you have no control, you are managing your chemical locha in the brain. That's it. Right? You are managing your mind, which means you are calm. You know that this is going to take so much repetitions, and until you are done consistently taking action in a particular, let's say, maths problem, and you keep on writing and nahi aaya, to again dekha and then reinforce that, and sometimes you remember this but not that, and sometimes you remember that but not this, and then you remember both but something third which you otherwise had remembered smoothly, you tend to forget that. So clean up the act by constantly, and let many senses take the input, which means you are reading also, and seeing also, and visualizing also, and smelling also, and tasting the math sums also, and writing them also. So your entirety is getting invested in it. For example, associate various kinds of tastes with various formulas. Right? This formula tastes like this. So cook it up in your mind, or maybe have a particular food while studying that formula. Right? And keep on reinforcing that, so that those kind of flavors will get associated with that formula. So all you'll have to do is to recall that pastry. Right? Don't keep eating pastries throughout the day. Yeah. Okay. So let's proceed. Samya Das, vast portion and little time. Yeah. So the same thing pretty much. Let me just open the question up. Yeah. Vast portion and very less time for me, since I have to submit my first term, that is in October. First term. Submit your first term, meaning submissions, or are you talking about
I
a
will
portfolio?
have to submit, I will have to submit the first term marks for the admission. So they won't look at my boards marks.
Okay.
Means I will have to pass boards, but they won't make it.
Okay. So focus concentration में problem आ रहा है, as in what exactly? You get distracted, or
Distracted, and it's difficult for me to sit and like read the whole chapter like for a longer time. I do one chapter, get up, get distracted, and then come back to another one. So for it to continue.
Okay. So so do chunk it out in parts. So you do only this much, and when you come back, do some other subject, and when you come back from there, do a third subject. Don't keep doing the same subject, because then certain boredom tends to sit in. Right? So keep on fluctuating, because the mind loves variety, and that's why we keep scrolling. Right? So apply the same logic. that you are scrolling through the subjects, which means 25 minutes you do this, 5 minutes break, Pomodoro. Again, 25 minutes focused work. And if you don't feel like sitting and doing, I used to walk around with my book constantly. My legs used to get crazy tired. But that was the only way I could remember. Because the moment I would sit, my mind would wander away. So the way I used to do it was walking up and down. Literally, I would walk my entire house. And sometimes even outside, but basically inside. Yeah. Goal in the same room. And sometimes go from room to room to room to room. And sometimes do this in this room and that in some other room, etc. So all sorts of like just you don't have you should not, the mind loves variety, so you should not put any predictable pattern, because then the mind will switch off, because it knows knowing something will be very boring. We love variety, right? Variety is a spice of life. So there's a constant newness. That is why we watch movies, for example, and that is why the art kind of movies seem very slow and boring. अरे यार वो एक step, दूसरा step, तीसरा step, चौथा, अरे समझा यार आगे हो. She is reaching from here to there. वो मंदिर से निकली. Why do you have to show each and every step right till the, right? There are like 25 steps. समझा ना उधर, cut to that and आगे क्या हुआ बोलना, right? But they keep on, because art film is a different ball game altogether. They want you to contemplate, because it is for people who love that deep contemplation and going deeper into the psyche, और उसके मन में क्या चल रहा होगा. It's a different audience altogether, right? Compare that with all that uthal-puthal undulating with action movies and all that. So it's like you are constantly, you want the next thing, right? So you need to regulate your, do you realize you are calling this as your own mind, but you have such less control over your own mind. So we will be doing, in the next few sessions, we'll actually be doing certain exercises, breathing, etc., etc. So please remind me about this, Soumya, right? And another question is from Duhan: how to find the best time to study for myself? How to find the environment to study for myself? Okay. So best time, you can, you'll need to work out what, like, when do you feel enthusiastic to study which subject?
I can study any subject any time, but like sometimes I come back from class and then I study, and then after that, like in the afternoon, I feel like studying, or maybe in the evening, mostly in the night.
One second, I didn't get that afternoon thing once again.
So I come back from class like in the afternoon, so I study that time right after class. Then sometimes I feel like studying in the evening or afternoon or night. Depends.
So that's okay. So so far as that is working for you, then that is also fine.
It's not working. That's why I asked this.
So if it is not working, then find out for yourself by doing, let's say, maths in the early morning, and once in the afternoon, once in the evening. So do P and C and M, AM, afternoon, PM, and then shift it, right? Notice, keep track of, actually write down whether this felt right, whether this felt good, because ultimately your mind needs to feel good at that time doing that subject, right? So what combo works the best? Is physics in the afternoon better, or morning better, or evening better? Likewise for each and every subject. So decide your favorite time. Sometimes, sometimes it feels that all the memorizing stuff maybe that would be better when you are fresh, that is in the mornings, right? Definitions, etc. So you may even not necessarily do a particular subject. Maybe you can just do the definitions of all subjects, or whatever, 3 or 4 subjects in the morning. So definition in maths and definition in physics and in chemistry and whatever else, right? Whatever the rote learning things you are doing in the morning. So mix and match. Don't get fixated into a particular subject. तो अभी मैं तो यही subject पढ़ूंगा throughout, start to finish, right? Allow yourself the variety. You don't like eating the same food, right? Like imagine one dish and only that throughout. मजा नहीं आएगा, right? That's why खाने शादी का खाना क्यों अच्छा लगता है, because there is so much variety, and then you overeat, etc. That's a different matter. But like if you take just one little spoon, that is my logic. Whenever I go for I rarely go to anyone's marriage, but if I have to, उसका marriage का कुछ lunch or dinner है, तो take very less quantity than what you feel, because there are too many items. So by the time you reach the last item, your plate is sufficiently full already anyways, because and then you can always go back and take a second helping, right? But initially एकदम minimal, मतलब जितना आप सोचते हो, wow, this is, I love this, and then you invariably take more, and then so वो indigestion हो जाता है. That's why just have little chunks of a certain typology of question from various subjects.
Because my teacher said that like, so not time, but they said that you should study from like only questions. You shouldn't study the basics will be like formed and like taught in the class. Just go home and revise the questions. So the target book in HSC, that book they told to read.
The teacher has put forth his or her point of view. Now you see whether that is workable for you, because there is no one size fits all, right? So you need to experiment with yourself of what exactly works for you at what time, in how much chunks. Pomodoro is a good way of doing 25 minutes focus work, 5 minutes break. Then again come back. Don't spend 25 minutes not doing anything. Yeah. 25 minutes work, 5 minutes necessarily a break. Otherwise, your recall or your grasp tends to dwindle. So don't hero बन के मत पढ़ो again. मैं 2-3 घंटे तो मैं पूरा I will be at it, because the quality of, you might still be at it, but the quality of grasp would go down.